One of my all-time favorite features inside of Lightroom is called virtual copies. And what virtual copies does is it taps into how we actually raw process our photographs. So let's go ahead and revisit this topic of raw processing really quickly and then jump into the topic of virtual copies. Well, if we have a photograph and we're working inside of Lightroom, we know that this particular image has pixels, it has data, there's something physically there. Well, Lightroom doesn't change the physicality of the pixels. Nothing happens to them. It's non-destructive. Yet what it does is it modifies some settings. And the settings are this small little text file which say, hey, display this image a certain way, or apply this amount of sharpening, or this amount of contrast. And so what Virtual Copies does is it taps into this overall workflow. In other words, if you create a virtual copy of an image, here's what happens. You're just creating a small little file, a small little set of settings which say, hey, I want to display this image this way. So in other words, there's no drastic increase in file size. In fact, the file size is so small it's not even really significant. And the way that these setting files are accessed and used is so nimble and lightweight and quick that it adds a lot of fluidity, not to mention a ton of creativity. And you can push this even further. You can say, well, let's create another virtual copy. And again, you're just creating this small little settings file. And you modify your settings in Lightroom and then have yet another iteration or another version of the image. So this iterative approach, in other words, this approach where you can have one image and then apply settings and have a different image and another one, can really be helpful. Let's say if you need to compare noise or contrast between two photographs. Or let's say you just want to get creative and have a couple of different versions of a file. So virtual copies allow us to do this in some really profound ways. Now there's a shortcut to creating a virtual copy, and this is an essential shortcut. So I want to pull it up here, and I definitely recommend you write this one down. On a Mac, the shortcut is Command. On a PC, it's Control, and then plus one character. And the character is the apostrophe key. So again, it's Command apostrophe or Control apostrophe in order to create a virtual copy. All right, well, now that we've been introduced to the topic of virtual copies, let's go ahead and take a look at how we can start to work with them in the next movie.